It's the dreamscape.
Welcome back, dreamers, to Indie Synergy Exchange, your podcast for all things indie art and creation. I am your host, Tanner Giese, also known as Number 2 Pencil Man and owner of Tanner's Tales Entertainment. And joining me tonight, I have my wonderful co-host, Rachel, aka Andromeda. She is a musician, talented artist, and poet. And writer. Don't want to forget that one. And tonight we're being joined by a very special guest, Brandon Bloxdorf, editor-in-chief of Apollo City Comics and community manager of Comics Wellspring.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Yeah, we're
That's
super
so cool.
excited to have you, Brandon. And before we get into you and your creative endeavors, I just wanted to take a moment and thank all of you guys out there who have been watching the podcast and supporting us. We are growing, actually, at a pretty slow, steady rate, and it's been fantastic to see all the community that we've been building. And we've been interviewing so many different artists. We've had a variety of different creators come on the show, ranging from authors, poets, clowns, doctors of psychology. We've had basically any type of creator out there. We've kind of had a little bit of that on the show, and we are going to continue to do that going forward. If you want to be a part of that, you can support us. Definitely drop a like, comment, and if you like what we're doing, subscribe to the channel. Helps us build our platform a little bit bigger so that we can help push other indie creators into the spotlight and get their stuff seen. And yeah, so definitely join us in that endeavor. We would love to make the world a more indie-friendly place and just show what the indie community has to offer, because there's so many amazing and talented creators out there, and yeah, we just want to support that. So thank you again for your support. Definitely subscribe to our YouTube and follow us on all the audio platforms. I know we're a little behind on there, but when we have the episodes out, definitely check us out there. So we'll jump into it now. Without further ado, Brandon, introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you.
Hi, I'm Brandon Bloxdorf. I do so much. It's crazy. It's going to be fun to kind of run through this. I always like. It's always the checklist is going to be fun. So I work for Comics Wellspring. I'm the community manager. A lot of people know me from the shows that we do, the interviews I've done with Inspired Ink. I do the live drawing show Spilled Ink every Thursday night, where I was bringing indie creators on to like teach me how to draw. And now a year into it, we started making comics. So I'm making my first like comics like on these episodes. So, and we
That's
always love
cool.
bringing people on for that. Yeah, it's a lot of fun, and it's one of those things like I didn't know how to draw. I was terrified. I was scared. I thought I was the worst in the world. That's how every artist is when they
Mm-hmm.
start or continue to do stuff. So I figured if I did it live with friends, it'd be less terrifying, and then people at home could feel like, oh, I could do this on my own then. So it's been a fun journey, and everything we do at Comics Wellspring is just so community focused, creator focused. Me being a creator, running Apollo City Comics, and I'll run through that right now. It kind of just helps fuel the company to get direct feedback from creators to really deliver what they want and kind of work with people with ordering and just kind of just helping them. Comics are hard as it is, and then once you get
Mm-hmm.
to the printing stage, it's an entirely different beast, and you're like, I got to figure all this out. And like I thought I knew how to make comics, and then I got to like, oh, I got to like do stuff on the computer and figure out this program and like formats, and then like what's like DPI, like all this, like. And so as a writer, I don't know how to do that, but we're here to help, so always we're here for the community. We're here to help encourage people make comics, to print comics, and I love
I
that.
love it.
That's just kind of what I do all day. And then I turn around, quite literally, I guess, in a sense. And I do Apollo City Comics. I don't. All my books are down. I'm prepping for a little show, and I decided not to. I should have pulled. I have boxes here. I might run and grab. But
Yeah.
Apollo City Comics. It was a podcast that started in 2018, and like 2022, after years of just podcasting and talking about comics and trying to break into it, we I put out my first book, and it was the punk anthology, and out come the comics, and that just kind of skyrocketed us to meet other creators, and it just changed. It's been almost 2 years. July will be 2 years for us publishing comics, and we have like 18 titles out. We just did a round bringing on new editors. We have a group of like 25 people and like 35 projects in development. It's insane. I have
Wow.
no idea how this happened. And it's just so cool though. We have so many events coming up this year that are really big, that are just different in general. And it's just been a really cool part of, I don't know, just running the show and meeting all these creators and bringing all this talent and telling my stories, which is why I brought in editors, because I'm just overthrown with stuff and I need creative time for myself. I need some recharge time, and I need some people to help me with it, which is cool. I have a great team. I have the greatest team ever, which is why we've done so much. And we have like, I mean, some of these are covers that we've done, from Kick Off the Jams, This Comic Goes Fascist, the Punk Anthology, Hyperforce. Adam Matthew Smith is part of our team. Great dude. We're currently doing some final edits on that book before it goes to print. And then like I write comics as well. I do Teenage Babylon, Fake Your Death, The High Adventures of Weed Wizard and Bong Boy, the broadcast dialogues, and then some new
Wow.
stuff I have down the pipeline as well. So it's fun. It's crazy. Corpse Flower, we just did a mini, me and my girlfriend Lex. It's super cool. We're prepping that as well. So yeah, I'm trying to like help people make comics, and I'm making comics. I'm helping publish stuff. I just got really immersed in all this, and I met the right people at the right time, it seems like, and it's kind of what I do now, which is really cool. I'm so hyped
Yeah,
about it. It's so exhausting though. Like,
that's incredible. What an like all the other guests that come on are like, oh, I'm doing this and that. And you're just like, bam. I'm like, this is the
it's
longest.
insane
This is the
ADHD.
longest portfolio I've ever heard on the show, and that is amazing. So that
Thank you.
I gotta applaud that, because wow.
Yeah.
I just have a great team. You know what I mean? That's it. Really, that's why I get to do a lot of this. But yeah, my bad. And
No,
anyways,
that's incredible.
Are you in Florida? Is that
no,
where was
I'm in
Matthew Smith? I'm trying to
he
remember.
was in Florida.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
he's in
That's
Florida. So I'm from El Paso, Texas, but now I
Hmm.
live in Winchester, Virginia, like
Oh,
an hour or so outside of DC.
okay, cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, first of all, have you always been interested in comics? Like even like as a kid, when did you get interested in just comics?
I think I've always been interested in comics and superheroes. I was kind of not necessarily, I was like shown superheroes at a very early age.
Hmm.
Um, and it kind of blended with everything else my dad showed me. Everything I do is kind of a mixture of what my dad showed me as a kid, and
Yeah.
that was like music, like rock and roll, and comics. So like Spawn and Kiss just like made sense to me,
Mhm.
like, and it just kind of all went together. Um, my first comic I remember looking at like as a child and like actually remember holding and like reading and like going through, which is the craziest, probably why my life is so wild. Because it makes no sense for this to be someone's first comic, but it was
Hmm.
Crisis on Infinite Earths #1.
Hmm.
And if you read that as a child, or even now as an adult, like you're just like, what is going on?
Mhm.
And that was my first exposure to like a comic, and it just kind of let me know you could do anything in a sense. Like
Hmm.
rules were broken instantly for me by reading that first, in a way.
Wow.
It, so this is maybe a weird question, but do you identify? I'm asking because my boyfriend, he loves the villains of the comic book series. He loves all the villains. Like, are you a hero or are you a villain guy? Like, what are you more drawn to?
Or anti-hero.
Um,
Or anti-hero? Yeah.
I don't know. I guess definitely more of the hero role, I guess, in a way. That's a good question. I never thought about it that way. Because, like, not so much the villain side. Like, you could always see the villain side, but, like, I know that's not the right choice. Like
Mhm.
even, like, when I play
Hmm.
video games or do Star Wars stuff, like, I'm always too polite to, like, do those, like, mean things. You know what I mean? Like, I'm always even nice in, like, video games. Like, I can't, like, and I think that's just, like, a reflection of, like, I kind of know what to do and what I should do, and I try to go with that path at
Mhm.
that point. So even if I tried to be mean and evil, it just like doesn't like I'd be the villain that like says what I'm gonna do, and then I don't actually do it because I'm like, that'd be like, yeah, I already like
Yeah,
that
yeah.
was kind
That
of
would be
me,
an
huh?
interesting concept for a villain in a comic. I'm going to
Scrap
say
it.
what I'm going to do and then not do it.
Yeah, just
Just
be
always
really bad about it.
just in
That
a
needs to be a storyline.
yeah, really. Um, so I'm always just very fascinated about like the whole process of writers because I myself am a writer. So I'd really like to hear about like your journey as a writer. Like what are you writing? What are the storylines? What kind of themes do you like to talk about? And just maybe describe to me like the process. Cause like I'm writing a novel and I imagine it's very different in a lot of ways than a comic. So when I read comics, I think, how do you break all of this down? And it's almost like it's condensed and you've got to be very, I don't know, very intentional with everything. You know, with the novel, you can go on forever, basically, just be wordy. And so I'd just like to hear the process for you.
I feel like that's so opposite too, because
Yeah.
when I got a BFA in creative writing, and so like I
Nice.
was kind of just figuring out like, am I going to do film? Am I going to do prose? Or am I going to do comics? And I really tried for each one,
Hmm.
and like for a while, like prose was like where I was going. Like my first thing I got published was a prose short story,
Nice.
and I kind of really wanted to pursue that. So the stories, like the broadcast dialogues, a sci-fi book I'm working on with Jeremy John Hansen, that was like all short stories and like I wanted to do like a novella, like a Michael Moorcock, like those old 70s sci-fi novellas, you know what I mean? Just short, like, but just spit out a bunch, you know. I thought that'd be a lot of fun. And I really aimed towards that. But like I feel like I got so lost. Maybe I'm just more out of practice now and it seems intimidating because I was really immersed in it. But once I stopped, I kind of and went towards comics and towards that structure. I feel like it's harder for me to dive back into that deep level of detail you go in a novel. And I
Hmm.
almost miss that a whole lot, you know? So it's kind of cool. It's a great way to think about it, like what you were just saying. Because it is very polar opposite, where you kind of think in moments and scenes
Yeah.
um,
Hmm.
more than just like full emotional detail that you could go into with a novel, or just like when I explain backgrounds and like panels, I'm not being super specific because I want to give the artist like artistic freedom. So I
Hmm.
let them tell that side of the story. So I kind of pull back on some detail, you know, but in a novel, you really want to pour out all that detail.
Right. Right.
Um, so I love that. Like, I don't know, I just admire both crafts so much. It's really cool that you're doing a
Yeah.
novel. But I don't know, I kind of write. I have so many series that I got real lucky and I met a lot of artists right off the bat that were just like really excited to like work with like me and Apollo, and I've always been so thankful for every single artist that I do work with. Like Teenage Babylon, that's my main book that I put focus on because I think that's the most personal book that I've made in a sense. That one and Fake Your Death, and I'll tell you about that one right now. But Teenage Babylon is like a cosmic punk rock love story, and that all rooted from like actually like when I really think about it, back in high school, like when I was a senior, I had a really encouraging English teacher that told me that I was good at like telling stories, and I never heard that before ever being in school. And I'm a really big like Blink-182 fan. So I'm a Tom DeLonge fanboy. And so like Boxcar Racer and Angels and Airwaves and all that stuff, super obsessed with. And so like I kind of took like what I interpreted the storyline was for the Boxcar Racer album and
Hmm.
like the evolution of that. So it's about like a punk kid that gets his heart broken and like it's the end of the world, and then like you go into Angels and Airwaves and that's like the rebirth, and then I Empire, he's like growing like an empire and just like his own like kingdom and everything, and then there's love, and then the Dreamwalker. So they're all like phases. I broke it down into just because I'm a fucking nerd, and I just really got into that. And I kind of thought of that when I was writing that short story, but then I stopped writing. Because like I was a musician since high school. I focused on playing bass. So even when I heard that from my teacher, I was like, "That's cool," and I gave it an attempt and never worried about it again. And I just continued playing music, and then that story kind of bounced back years later, and I rewrote it, and it's kind of gone through like 8 different drafts, and right now it's like at the best it's ever been with my artist Christian. um and it's such like it is literally just a cosmic punk rock love story. Like literally it's about when love runs out of the universe in the future, and then you have this character Ethan, who's trying to find the last trace of love in the universe, and it's in this character Elliot's journal, because that's everything's just wiped out, and so he has to go and find this journal because that's that last trace would like reignite like love in a sense, um, and so it's like this really kind of cosmic war that kind of goes on because of that, and you're also seeing the storyline of Elliot. As a teenage like punk kid in a punk band meeting a girl and falling in love, and like he'll get his heart broken and all this stuff. So I have like this crazy sci-fi aspect, that's relaying another story that's just a bunch of just like honestly a lot of like autobiographical stuff in a way in that sense of being in a band and just like dating and stuff like that and relationships, and like falling in love and getting your heart broken and all that stuff. And so that's like it's like a really hard story to write sometimes because you go in those directions, and that's kind of like even with Fake Your Death, a book I do with an artist called China Rosemaria. She's wonderful. My Substack I'm about to post, my most recent one once this goes up. It has some of her art from the book we're working on.
Awesome.
Totally ripped off an MCR song title on that one, and it's that again. It's just like real personal because I kind of just took a lot of self reflection, but I poured it into a storyline that was like inspired by an MCR album, and kind of just did my own spin on some of that and kind of pulled from there in my own life to kind of bring that to life. So I have like those really two like dark, not dark, they're fun, they're playful, there's humorous stuff in there, but it's like a really emotional books that I started off with.
I love
And
that.
I had to find stuff to balance it out too, And I think that's why I have other series, because when you go into that mindset, sometimes you kind of get stuck and you get really buried into stuff, and you have to think about things sometimes, and you're like, ah, well, now I'm in the funk, like,
Yeah.
I
It's
get
really
that.
deep subject matter, talk
yeah,
about love and heartbreak and all of that.
yeah. And then like also like remember like the present and stuff's good right now. Like you
Yeah.
survived it all,
Yeah.
Right.
I definitely think that putting an element of like yourself into the stories is a very powerful thing. So like being able to take those different elements and to put those feelings in it in a way that kind of transmutes it and inspires and puts it into a story that could inspire and empower other people. I think that is one of the most powerful things that a storyteller can do. I talk about it with Katie a lot when we watch like different shows and animes, or like when I read a good story. If it invokes a feeling in me, I'm like, that's a good story. I'm like, if you can feel what they're trying to convey, then they did a good job. And I think that the best way to do that is to put a personal experience that you've overcome or learned from into the story. So that's incredible, and I am hyped. I want to like read your books now
Yeah,
after hearing all the amazing things that you're doing with them.
Thank you.
definitely.
And the artists are amazing. Like Max Flowers does all my lettering, and Christian is just brought such a flavor to Teenage Babylon because I have what's cool about Teenage Babylon is I kind of built a little universe around it in a sense of like I had Nicholas Freshen who did the cover for the Punk Anthology, our first book, and he
Hmm.
did the first Teenage Babylon short story in that book. And then he wasn't able to continue the book. So then Christian came into play. But also, I've done two short stories in our Shadow Anthology and our Horror Anthology that's coming out with Tanner T. Ogle. And he's done some shorts, and those short stories, like, one of them really goes into Ethan's like kind of psyche, Elliot's psyche, the main character, the punk kid in Teenage Babylon, and kind of goes through his moods and like his inner like feelings and everything, like when you do shadow work on yourself. And then the other one kind of is like a filler horror like scene with like the cosmic like Lovecraftian creatures in Teenage Babylon that come out. So it's fun being able to do that with different artists and still have the main book that's going to be like just a different flavor overall. Like they're all so radiant in
Mhm.
how I could. Oh, I guess I'm just fortunate I have different artists to work with that want to do this type of stuff, in that sense too.
Yeah.
That
I'm,
But
yeah,
I'm
that's a big thing.
I'm a little curious, like, do you sit down with an artist and say, I want this particular style, or you just kind of let them go with it? Like, do they just read the story and say, I feel this would be the best style, or did they all just kind of stay in their own distinct style?
I kind of give them their freedom just to do their own style. I kind of try to match to their growth and their strengths in a lot of ways. Every one of my artists are on my books for a particular reason. China's very expressive, like almost like a painting every time you see her work. Her inks are so heavy, and it's just such a flow state with everything. So like something like Fake or Death, which is about like teenage runaways, and it goes into some crazy sci-fi stuff. I kind of mixed. These were the first stories I was doing where I was just like, I'm gonna be really emotional, but really out there at the same time.
Mhm.
And to the point where the last script, she was like, "Are you messing with me, or is this?" I was like, "No, no, I'm serious." Like that, and she's like, "I was like, if you're cool with it, then we'll do it." And she's like, "No, I'm cool with it. It just I didn't see that coming," and I was like, "Okay, rad, that's great." But she's such so expressive, and that really does help add like emotion to that book a whole lot.
Mm.
Mhm.
And Christian is so heavy on the detail; it adds to the wonkiness and the flavor to Teenage Babylon, but also I do a little stoner series called The High Adventures of Weed Wizard and Bong Boy, and
Nice.
I do that I do that with Evan McGuire, and he's perfect for that book. I can't have anyone else do that book. I have a poster over here. We have it in our book One Hitters that's just got released. It's going to be up on our store this week actually, um, and it's just it's he's so animated and colorful, and when I saw his character designs, they were perfect because it's a guy that turns everything into weed. That's kind of a Miracle Man ripoff in a way. And then he has a sidekick, Bong Boy, who's just literally a bong that skateboards. Like just that's it. That's his power. And then they fight like Reggie, like their gangster street level villains are like Reggie and then like Dimebag and Nickel and the Dub. And then they do their cosmic stuff where they're gonna fight Gravactus, who like uses gravity bongs on planets to smoke them, and the Silver Swisher to come through. So yeah, just like wonky, just stupid. I wanted like Comedy Central, Adult Swim
Yeah.
ridiculousness, Robot Chicken, Aqua Teen Hunger Force. Like I just wanted to laugh a lot because my
Mhm.
other series at the time were just so like sad.
Yeah.
At that point, I just needed to be somewhere else. Um, Jeremy John Hansen, who does the broadcast, oh my gosh, dude, T'Challa, Jesus, man, he just scared me. Just stabbed my leg too. Come here.
Oh,
Jeremy John Hansen does Teenage Babylon. Yeah, all the cats will pop up in a little
I
bit.
love
This
that
is
so
my
much.
boy. He's ridiculous. Hi, baby.
No.
Um, he's almost like a Jim Lee level style. Like
Mhm.
when you look at his art, so he's perfect for like if I'm gonna do something crazy in sci-fi and the space opera I did that I wanted to turn to a novel at that
Mhm.
point. I was like, this is perfect. And he's a growing artist, and I have Bob Little doing colors on that. That's the story I need time to write because it's like a heavy like a space opera. Like I really wanted to go wild with it. And Jeremy's really skilled where I could do crazy like when you think about mainstream comic like level detail stuff. You know what I mean? Like it has a
Mhm.
he has a flavor that's like meant for that, you know.
Mhm.
Um like I wouldn't see China doing as heavy and intense work. Like that wouldn't work the same and it just wouldn't equate the same, you know. Um and then I'm doing another parody book with him, The Daemons, which is like Gene Simmons and Spawn teaming up to fight different demons of different universes. Which it's stupid. It's just another goofy book. And we have Apollo Prime, which is like our strip comic. Basically, they're like one pagers. We're putting in the back of all Apollo books. And that's me and Tanner T. Ogle. And it was originally called Anxiety Boy. But we switched it to Apollo Prime, and he's basically a character that like you'll see he's grocery shopping one episode and he doesn't have enough money and has to figure stuff out, and then he's like fighting superheroes in the next and going through like medieval like stuff, and then he's just everywhere in the cosmic universe that we do put him in. um
That
and I
sounds
think
really
that's
fun.
everything.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got lucky where like a lot of my ideas I got to bring to life with the team we've built together. I feel like I'm missing something though, but I'm kind of trying to do my own comics with Spilled Ink at this point too, which is kind of like it was a Star Wars theme that we
Mhm.
started with, so I'm doing little Star Wars like self stories and whatnot that I'll be putting out in like a little zine soon probably.
That's awesome. How do
Yeah,
you
that,
like
Yeah.
do you just sell it on your website, or do you have these in comic book stores, or how does that work?
Little both, yeah. So you can get everything at apollo citycomics.com.
how
All of
cool
the
that.
books are yeah, a lot. We actually were doing an update. We're actually missing just like two titles that we just got in actually the last month or so. But we've been traveling and doing stuff, and so everything you want is available here. All of our books, physical, digital. We just got some merch up. Javi has some prints up. We'll also be putting up some prints. Some artists will be adding original work soon. Um, and yeah, some people will even be, we might not even do Kickstarters for some books. Some books will just be releasing here online. And then we'll have like freebies like the OS shorties and such. So
Do you live near these artists, or do you just work over the internet? How does that work?
pretty much all over the internet, which is
Wow.
insane. Like Alex Batts and I, he's the reason why we started publishing comics in 2022. Once we met, we just kind of became an unstoppable force. Like I was doing everything for Apollo and my own when it came terms of editing and promoting and doing the podcast and setting up stuff. I had co-hosts, but they weren't like as active as I was. So I was used to doing everything. And then Alex came into the picture and he did Cybersync. That was his first book. And just systematically we work so well together. And
Yeah.
then Max Flowers we met because of the punk anthology. Um, and he just gave us the best designs and the flavor of Apollo overall. Like he's where the A came from and our spray paint font and all that. Like, and it just like the pieces just all started falling in place. Like I can't even explain it. Like it's crazy how you just meet one person and it all leads into another thing. And lesser known comics was really like where we started, because I knew Mark Bernal, the owner of it, and he's really why all this happened in general. Like his support, him giving me like the right ideas. He told me, because I was trying to do Teenage Babylon first, and he was like, what if you did an anthology, like a punk anthology, and that way you have this cosmic punk rock love story you're trying to sell, but do this punk anthology, you'll build a fan base, and then you release your book, and you already have a fan base built. They're gonna be more interested in your
Mm,
book. And it took off more than any of us expected because I put out, being a podcast, I had a little bit of traction, I had
yeah.
some followers, and I put out like, we're gonna open submissions for our first book, who wants to send stuff in, and we got like 80 responses into that,
Wow.
and it was insane. We had to like spend like 4 hours going through submissions and figure out we just expected like 10,
Hmm.
and it was the same thing with our editor role that we just opened up. We were like, oh, we're looking for an editor. I was expecting like 4 people to like hit me up. I had like 40 applicants.
Oh my gosh.
Dang.
And yeah, and I'm just like, this is crazy. Like, what? Like, thanks. I really appreciate that. But we've just spread. It's all over internet. Alex Batts and I haven't met yet, which is crazy. I've met most of the team though. A lot of us met at IC3. Mark Bernal actually lives in right outside of DC in Alexandria, so we hang
Okay.
out all the time. And so it's me moving to Virginia was the greatest thing that could have happened to me. It wasn't under the best circumstances, but it was the
Hmm.
best thing and it was I needed a life restart,
Yeah.
and I had a friend that lived up here who had a government job and was always out of town. She was out of town like 6 to 8 months out of the year.
Wow.
But we were best friends from high school. We lived 4 blocks away from each other. My dad took us to high school every single day together. And I just moved into a spare bedroom with me and my animals, and dude, just everything just kind of took off from there. It's kind of crazy.
I feel
Man,
like,
that's awesome.
go ahead. Were you gonna
Oh,
say
yeah, I
something?
was gonna say, like, I feel the same way with like how my whole thing started. Like, I, for the longest time, lost my creative spark, and I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. But
Oh yeah.
I came back to a point where I was like, I want to be a storyteller, and it was like everything in my life pointed to that, and it was just like as I took one step, it started to unfold in a little bit, and it's like, oh, now you're doing this. Oh, hey, you wanted to do storytelling, do YouTube, and I'm like, okay, I'll start doing YouTube. What am I gonna do for YouTube? Creative stories. Tell the story about the time you sat on a pencil. Number two pencil man was born. All right, go to conventions dressed as number two pencil man. Started to build a fan base, and then it was like, all right, now you got a comic, and it's like it one step at a time just unfolded it, and I think like there's something to it. I there's gotta be like,
Well, I mean, I think the biggest thing about it is like storytellers and people. I mean, I think everyone's in such a rush to like do things in life. And then
mm,
when you really consider like really great writers, you realize how late in life they started.
Yeah.
And it's, Brian McDonald, he's my favorite instructor. If you look up the podcast, You Are a Storyteller, or his book, Invisible Ink, greatest thing you could get on storytelling in general. But what he really says is stories are survival information in
Mhm.
any way and
mm,
form. So like when I do Teenage Babylon, like I'm passing on like the aspects of love and heartbreak. You know what I mean? Like I'm
Yeah.
teaching you something, an experience I went through, that survival information you're passing on to someone in some sort of sense, So you have to really like live life to
Yeah.
tell stories. It's one thing to have like a great
I love that.
imagination, and imagination's great. You need
Yeah.
imagination, but like to live life and have experiences and go through things, no matter how hard or great, like you need that to really tell a story and connect with people in certain ways. And I think,
Totally.
I mean, I started late, I feel too. I mean, I wasn't always writing stories. This really
Hmm.
didn't kickstart till like, I guess like 2015, 2016. But nothing really happened until like 2021, 2020, because that's when I was like reattempting college at that point in my life.
Hmm.
But like I was a musician forever. I played bass. I was in bands. I toured. I was like played a 6 string Music Man bongo with a big old 8x10 and like did all this cool stuff, and I loved it. And I thought music was what I was going to do for my whole life. And once that kind of fell apart, and kind of like what you were saying,
Hmm.
for some reason I just read something and I was like, I want to be a storyteller. I want to be able to do stuff like this. It all just kind of clicked.
Mhm.
And you just kind of chase that for a bit.
Yeah.
Kind of want to get back to doing, especially now because Apollo's blown up so much. I miss just like, oh, I'm just going to be a writer.
Mhm.
Like, I really miss those days.
Yeah.
That was another thing I wanted to ask because you said that you got into comic books. Well, you were pretty much into comic books from a young age, and you just told us that your band kind of fell apart. Like, when did you make the transition into indie comics and really like what made you want to start Apollo? I guess you started with Apollo first, and then Comics
Yeah.
Wellspring came later.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, that's a really good question. Indie comics, emphasis on that. Dude, I didn't really get into indie comics until, gosh, maybe around 2020, 2021.
Wow.
Um, because when I got back into comics and
Hmm.
writing, I had met like the most random people. I was a manager at Banana Republic at one point,
Oh,
and I met this random people, and I made like a reference to like their Aquaman shirt, and like then we started talking, and they were talking about creators, and then we were both kind of testing each other like on creators and whatnot, and I was like, this motherfucker testing me on like Todd McFarlane and Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo and whatnot, and they were just like, you need to come over, you need to check out this collection. And I was real skeptical at first. I was like, they're inviting me over to their house, like I don't know what to think. Like I was
Hmm.
like in my young 20s. I was like 22, 24 or something.
Mhm.
And then they came back weeks later and they're like, no, you need to come hit us up, hang out. And then I was like, all right, cool. And I went over, and it's craziest comic book collection ever. And it turns out that they were huge like signature collectors, and they had like literally a legendary amount of like, I can't tell you the stuff I've seen in their house. Like it's insane. Like any great key comic and signature, I've seen it. Like
Wow.
hands down. Like I that's what I did. That's what I chased for years. Was like I just wanted to collect signatures. I have like a whole jam book of all these Batman creators front and back. I've I was trying to break into comics with journalism too, in a way, to kind of write at that point too. So I was writing for websites and doing press stuff, so
Mhm.
that way I can meet people too and get signatures and things. So I'd go to with them to like San Diego Comic Con because they got me in,
Oh,
and
super
then
cool.
I'd hang out at their table and they would give me a stack of books because they would just chase signatures. And I've met everybody, dudes. Like I've met Tom King dozens of times. I've met Scott Snyder. I've met
Wow.
Capullo, McFarlane, Stan Lee. Like I've interviewed Elijah Wood, uh, um, William Shatner, Max Landis, like Kevin Smith, the Robot Chicken people, like all this stuff. Like I just got really lucky with like who I was like hanging out with. I was gonna not. I didn't name drop Neil Gaiman, but I'm just like, damn, that's not a name drop name
Yeah.
anymore. Like I fucking like, I was a huge Sandman fan. I have a Sandman tattoo, and now I'm just like,
Oh,
dude,
that's
we're all going through some moments here. But all my favorite Grant Morrison, Donnie Cates, like I've hung out, I've had a whole conversation with Donnie Cates and Nick Darrington, about scanning comics and whatnot. It was
Wow.
crazy. Like I got real fortunate meeting all these like heroes of mine, and like I have some crazy signature collection at that point. So I was just into mainstream books. I didn't really know about indie, and I didn't get into indie even on the podcast for years. I was just talking about books I loved. We would do movie commentaries and stuff like that. And we didn't start interviewing until like around the pandemic, I
Hmm.
guess, in a sense. Maybe earlier. I don't even remember. Um, but then I was like, oh, well, like I kind of realized if I was going to break into comics, there was no way for me to go straight to DC, Marvel, Boom,
Mm.
IDW. Like you had to start somewhere. So I was like, I don't want to chase Tom King and Scott Snyder for interviews. I want to talk to indie creators to see what they're doing and how do I start there and
Hmm.
make my first comic in the first place and
Yeah.
figure that like how do I find artists? Like maybe if I just talk to some people, I'd find some people. And that's how I met Mark Bernal of Lesser Known Comics actually. And that started to turn wheels. And because of Mark, that's how I even met Comics Wellspring as well, because I'd moved to Virginia and I moved to Virginia because me and my fiance split and we got
Mhm.
broke up. And 4 months later, I moved across the country. And then I was living here and my remote job, they just fired me like at random. They were just laying off the editors and
Mm.
writers. So like I was just really kind of confused and alone and lost. And I like just got fired. And Mark was like, let's go to Baltimore Comic Con. And I was like, nah, I have no money. Like I can't do. And he's like, just come hang out. And I was like, all right, cool. And so I go to Baltimore Comic Con and I meet Dan Hills of Comics Wellspring, and he's like just we're just talking, and he hears about the podcast, and we have a good conversation. And I was like, what if we started a show for Comics Wellspring, and we just figured some stuff out? And so I was contract with them to develop the show Inspired Inc. And
Mm.
with the show, with the reception, what was happening, and their transition from Greco to Carta, and everything that happened, like they brought me on full time like 8 months later, almost a year later, actually a year later from us developing, starting conversations about the show of April. So I've been there for a little over a year now at this point. And I became like their marketing, community, sales, just programming, I just do stuff. I do all the things because there's only like seven
Mhm.
of us, and I'm not in the um I'm not at the shop, so I just do all this stuff to help out and kind of just do things like this with you guys in a sense, which has led to like trust
Awesome.
in the indie community and experience tabling, and then
Yeah.
Yeah.
to our Kickstarter that we're doing now, which is
Yeah. Let me pull
a
that up.
wild path.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me get that here. Yeah. Tell us about this project.
So panels is so cool. So Dan Hills thought of this book because just printing comics and talking to creators for years and doing small projects of his own, um and also wanting to like help encourage the next generation of kids in comics and making art. They had made these books kind of like a junior comic book kids guide, and they did instructional stuff like in museums in Michigan and in the Detroit area. And he was just working on it for years. And when he kept on telling me about it, I was like, dude, what if we did this as a Kickstarter, as a fundraising thing to actually make it come to life? Because it was outside of everything at that point, like
Mm.
this was a very much a passion project of his. And that's why you see some similarities between the characters and him and his kids in a sense, and why
Nice.
stuff was chosen that way.
That's so
But
fun.
it's literally like, when you're reading all these books on how to make comics and what to do, there's no book out there really that tells you like a step by step, like how to do everything from character creation to drawing to paneling, to understand why you're making those decisions at those points and why
Right.
you put panels in a certain way. And have you, like, at the end of that, finish a book? Like nothing does that until this book, basically.
Mhm.
You will follow the workbook, follow the guidebook, and you'll have a completed work of art. You'll have a completed comic at the end of this. So it's a cool project we put together. I've been editing it. Jade Louder, the artist for all of this, has been developing the art, and that's basically what we're working on, or like touch ups on formats and edits at this point, tightening up the book. Jade's wrapping up there's so many icons and things you have to create for it, and story beats that we have included for examples that we're just touching up right now. So it's just a really cool to create and be part of a book that's going to teach people how to make comics,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
that's just insane. You know what I mean? Like that's just the funnest thing I could possibly be doing. And
Mhm.
here at CWS, our whole thing is to encourage people to make art, to encourage people to make comics, and come getting your physical book printed and in your hands is like it's the craziest thing,
Yeah.
like when you got your book, like you can't believe it exists at that point.
Yeah,
Mhm.
there's
Um,
no better feeling when you're holding it. And it was so interesting to me because I was looking through all the different indie publishers, but Comics Wellspring just there was something about it, and I'm like, I love it. And when I got the books, I get complimented on the quality all the time. Like I felt it, and I'm like, this isn't just like regular comic book paper that's gonna like tear easily. It's like this is nice, thick. It's beautiful, and the print quality is always like I always get compliments. It's high quality stuff for sure. Big fan.
Thank you. Yeah, they're wonderful, dude. And it's crazy because like I was a customer before I really got like brought onto the team too, you know? So it
Hmm.
was really fun being able to experience that whole entire thing and that process on my own and then getting brought on and just helping people ensure that they're getting everything they want out of their book, you know? And that's why I've just kind of leaned more into like a customer service side of things in a sense because I realize like some people just I mean it's confusing when you're printing your first book. Like, what is pounds? What is like interior paper size, like weight
Yeah.
matter, and like cover stocks? Like, how do I figure? You know what I mean? It's a lot of research that you get to a point where like, oh, this is a whole new thing I have to learn. Is like printing a book and the options to have, and I just want it to look like a comic. You know what I mean? Like, how do I just make it look like what I see every day? And there's so many ways to do that. So I love that I got to do that with as my day job. And then doing this project, it's like kind of just filling in that circle of encouraging people to make comics. And
Mm.
so also like everyone who backs the Kickstarter is going to get a bunch of exclusive downloads
Yeah, that'd
and
be.
additional things down the road. And
That's
we're
awesome.
really going to like be hooking up people once we get funded. We're going to be announcing a bunch of things that we're adding onto it. But yeah, Jay Louder killed it on the art. Um, we have rewards that range from, this crazy Magic the Gathering CWS trading card set to getting our blue line paper, having your name listed in it so it's forever like printed inside the thank yous in the book and people can look up that. Um, we have a cool foil one.
Hmm.
Um, we worked with Whamstand. I saw that you guys
Oh,
also know Whamstand as well.
Yes, we
Yeah.
love Matt.
cool.
Yeah, such a great guy. He's helped us out since the beginning as well.
I
Everything I
bet.
do, all these are behind me are wham stands basically.
Yeah,
Oh
Winston
yeah,
is
I
awesome.
love Wham Stand.
And then we also have like the supply pack, which I love so much. Sorry, I need to feed my cat before he goes a fit. Um, really cool supply pack that comes with really great Blick colored pencils, pencil sharpener, microns, and our blue line paper as well. So you could literally use our workbook to create your comic and then go and literally use 11 by 17 blue line paper to create your first comic at that point.
That's awesome.
Um,
I love it.
fully supplied. Yeah.
That's a really
So,
cool idea.
Oh wow.
and this one's the family pack. This was just like a fun over the top tier we created, and I love somebody backed it as well, which made me real happy.
Wow.
But it was intended with the thought like, this is aimed towards, younger audience. However,
Hmm.
it doesn't matter what stage you're in on your comic making career. It's good to go back to the, the woodshed and just like refresh or taking a different approach. Like whenever you should always be studying craft. That's basically what this book is. It's another craft book for you to
Hmm.
really utilize. And so you could have two of everything, two workbooks, two guidebooks, two supply packs, and then, intended for, if you have like a family in that sense, you have like, both kids, and then you have like probably the parents that are probably making comics and whatnot. So you get 10% off your CWS orders for 2 years.
Wow.
To like, and that's just like stack saving. And you figure if you're doing any like two or three orders a year, you're getting 10% off.
Yeah,
That's going to be
that's
well
big.
above what you're pledging. Yeah, so it'd be giving back to them and then helping encourage them make comics with anyone else.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I was really happy to kind of find. I love seeing the reactions for that one too. Um, and if we get lucky and hit some of these stretch goals, well, Jay Louder worked on a really cool poster we were going to use as a cover, but we just switched over to a bigger format. And then we'll be
Mm.
giving an additional 16-page how-to digital download that we weren't going to create at first, but we have a way now. And so we're going to offer that. But people backing the Kickstarter, no matter what, will get these other thematic uh, workbooks as well, which is really exciting.
Very
And
cool.
that's a typo on
Cool.
the second AK part. It's supposed to say 10K. But
Oh,
hey, it happens.
I didn't notice.
hey, it's good to know that even the big
Yeah.
guys have typos.
Yeah, it happens. But yeah, it's a really cool project. Just really
Yeah.
proud of it. Proud of being a part of it.
I think this is a great tool, like for anybody who wants to get into comics. It is a good place to start, and like you said, I don't know many books that are going over every like step with people. And I think in today's community or today's society, I don't know why I said community and society are kind of the same, but in today's society we don't always have the time to just like go to all the different resources to try to find it. So to have something that has it all in one, I think is definitely going to help so many people when it
Yeah.
comes to getting their own stuff out and seeing more comics be created in the world.
Hmm. Definitely.
Yeah,
Um,
it's so right. Oh, my bad. Go on.
no, you finish your thought and then I'll
Oh, I
ask.
was just rambling. That was pure just
Okay.
noise.
I was just gonna say it seems like now more than ever is the time for indie comics. I don't know much about indie comics until like I guess this past year I've gotten into it a little bit with Adam Matthew Smith, but can you talk a little bit about that? Like, just because it seems like all I've ever known, like I've read a lot of Catwoman comics. I have like basically the whole collection, and I like, when did this start happening? Like this indie thing, was this have not been possible 10 years ago, 20 years ago? I just want to hear your commentary on that.
So it's kind of interesting when you think about it. Like indie's technically always been around,
Hmm.
since,
Mm.
in a sense of since creation of comics in a way, but like they really blew up in the 70s, like with Robert Crumb and stuff like that. And they would have these books in like head shops,
Mhm.
which now, like years later, now that we're doing stoner comics, we're trying to get into like head shops and stuff
Right.
like that, which is like a full circle in a way with that type of essence.
Yeah.
And with books like Love and Rockets that came out like in the 80s and whatnot and started emerging. But like it's one of those things where indie didn't become as prominent as it is now until places like CWS where you could print your own
Yeah.
comics
Mhm.
and code to them, until things like crowdfunding really
Yeah.
started getting popular and bigger, and accessible in a big way. Kickstarter, I think, revolutionized the ability for somebody to make comics no matter what. Um, and then you had channels like Cartoonist Kayfabe that just like inspired a whole wave of creators to go out there and make more comics. And I feel like COVID was a really big part of
Mhm.
all that too. Like
Very
every conversation I had was people saying like, "Oh, I started because I was downtime with COVID. I finally got to pursue this," and that was just a repetitive thing I'd hear on these interviews over and over. And
yeah.
it's that Cartoonist Kayfabe started in 2018, so you had 2 years of that show just inspiring people and
Mhm.
started bringing that stuff out. And then you
Mhm.
had this crisis that happened, and through that crisis came community. And
Yeah.
then you had apparently I mean, I wasn't around for any of this part either, like creatively.
Mhm.
This is all stories I've heard. And you have this community that started like on Facebook and these movements and like these groups, the kayfabe stuff and the like all these little projects Cosmic Lion started really creating and whatnot.
Mhm.
Um, that really just sparked a big indie movement, it seemed.
Yeah.
And I've just seen it,
Definitely.
lesser known comics continued it and helped grow it even more. Because they had like 30 titles before they started slowing down and whatnot recently.
Mhm.
And then we sprouted out of that as
Yeah.
well. So like, and
Mm.
then I mean, 2 years into it, I always thought this was going to be just, I'd be lucky if I made a few books, and just running it and having these meetings where I think we released like 8 books our first year, like 14 our second or something, and like now we're at like 18 or something now at this moment in time. Um, and then we have like the 35 projects in development, and like we're onboarding a new member, 2 new members this week with an editor. And it's like it keeps growing, but everyone's like networking and getting more interwoven with each other too. And I love that.
Mhm.
So it's been like a long time growth,
Mhm.
but like it's had its dips, I feel probably like,
Mhm.
it technically indie in the 90s was like the, image dudes and all that stuff. And then I don't consider any of that indie anymore in a sense. Like
Mhm.
I feel like we're still in that underground, right above underground stage with like Apollo and Cosmic Lion and things like that.
Yeah, and to add to that too, Rachel, like I noticed I started going to conventions back in 2012 with my dad. We went to Wizard World back when it was Wizard World and it became Fan Expo, but we went to the Philadelphia one.
Yeah.
And I just remember that's where I had my first encounter with indie. Now, there wasn't nearly as many indie creators back even in those times because
Mhm.
a lot of the indie creators had to find small publishing companies that were just starting up to maybe go through with printing. And my one friend who actually publishes Sporkman, he told me like he found a publishing company in his local area, and then they like somehow made an arrangement. He was able to get his comic books made through them, but there wasn't a lot, but it was my favorite
Yeah.
thing because I just remember like going to the Comic Cons. And my first year or two, I went and I bought all like the mainstream books, but it
Mhm.
wasn't until like 2014, I want to say, that I started to notice the indie creators there. And then I started picking up their books, and I'm like, this is great. And for
Mhm.
me, ever since then, when I came back to storytelling, I knew like I wanted to be indie. And
Yeah.
now coming back to it, when I did, I feel like, just like what you said, it is the best time to be indie creators. It
For
is the
sure.
best time for indie comic book creators. Having resources like Comics Wellspring definitely like makes it so much more accessible now. And so now it's just a matter of empowering and inspiring creators to chase that dream. And
Mhm.
that's really what's going to push the indie into like mainstream kind of levels of
Yeah.
just having stuff out there. And we're already seeing it. It's like a tidal wave.
Well, it's almost like it's a combination of like these new businesses forming so that people can print, right? And then there's the social media so people can meet each other. And then there's apps and programs like this where we can actually talk to each other from a long distance across the country. So it's like the combination has made it possible for us to get our stuff out and collaborate with other people where it wouldn't have been possible before.
Yeah. Yeah. I would not be able to do this like in any other circumstance if it wasn't for, I mean, again, COVID transformed virtual communication in a big way. I don't think we would have advanced nearly as fast. I mean, we were all using Skype
Yeah.
literally until COVID. Like, think about
Right.
that. Like, it's insane. Like, nobody, that company just died. Like, they're done
Yeah.
now. Like, they
Yeah.
lost. And now, StreamYard and this, you know what I mean? Like, it's insane what we're doing, and it wouldn't be possible without things like that. But, I don't know. It's crazy. Like indie work, I was obsessed with Marvel and DC, man. I've read all the stuff. Like I've read like,
Hmm.
all the crises, all the
Mhm.
ultimate stuff. Like I just would obsessively read these like runs like crazy and just burn through the stuff. But then like I just started seeing the patterns after a while. And
Mhm.
when you're buying weekly and investing so much money into this stuff, and like no regrets on that. Like I've like 40 boxes of comics, which
Mhm.
moving 3 times in 3 years, which sucks, by the
Yeah.
way, with as many books as I have. Like it is the most horrible thing. I'm so over it. I'm staying in this place for at least 5 years.
Yeah.
Not selling a lot of my collection out too. But it's you see the patterns that happen to mainstream and like how similar everything looks, and like going to indie was like a breath of fresh air. I
Hmm.
Mhm.
feel like when you go to indie you see comics in their most purest form possible. It is just pure artistic intent and style and capabilities, and I love that just passion because I always thought I couldn't make comics unless I could write like these amazing writers that I idolized, um or I couldn't, draw because it wasn't Jason Fabok and Jim Lee and Tony Daniel, Bernie Wrightson level. And so I was like, no, there's no way. And then I saw Indie and I was like, oh, I could just do this. Like, I could just do this. I just might as well I just gotta do it. And
Mhm.
the biggest thing just to make comics is overcoming that thing that tells you that you can't make comics. Like,
Hmm.
I mean, this is my friend Murgo. This is an awesome book.
Oh,
This
cool.
is so cool. It's so cute, and it's
Oh.
one of the like, yeah, it's amazing. You know what? They have the like amazing just capability to be like, oh, this is what I'm producing,
Mhm.
and this is what comes out, and this is my art, and this
Awesome.
is the cool. It's we all adore it. We can, but then you look at it, and it's not like the most complex. Like I have a Conan free comic book day. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's all of that. So there's all my free comic book days stack was right here.
Awesome.
It's one of those things like that's such a different style and way of thinking and processing art, and you realize
Mhm.
like, oh, like just go make your comic. Like that's all it takes is you just doing it. And that's what I'm overcoming. I have that same fear. I did my first like mini comic recently for Corpse Power,
That's
Really cool.
awesome.
which is really like a whole lot of fun.
So
It's like a
cool.
prelude to a bigger series.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it's just it's crazy what you could do once you kind of like cross that barrier of fear and take action onto
Mhm.
something. And how much encouragement you're gonna have at that point too.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I wonder, I can't say I'm read enough comics to say for sure, but like I just wonder if some of these mainstream comic books studios, or are they called studios? I don't know what they're called, but are they becoming just formulaic? Are there
Yeah,
too many formulas involved now? Like, is that what happens if you get too complacent, or is it that they see this works and so they want to just keep rehashing it a thousand times?
I think it's probably it is a lot of formulaic in a sense, you know what I mean? But it's also a lot of people that's like their dream to write these characters. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like they have nothing, they just want to chase this one singular thing.
Mm-hmm.
And they might have these other stories in them, you know, for sure.
Yeah.
But also like I feel like the possibilities or the time you put into an indie comic until a certain point, maybe 5, 10 years ago, was just so unrealistic at a certain extent, unless you're printing it on your own and on your own printer, just made it impossible to think any other way.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really good question, honestly. Like it's crazy how you like comics have evolved and like how they've become more accessible too. I think web comics and technology
Yeah.
also help transform that
Definitely.
and give people a way to do that. And I feel like web comics blew up way faster and sooner
Mm-hmm.
than what we're doing now. I feel like we're playing catch up because we're waiting for print to catch up so
Yeah.
we can do this in this
Yeah.
sense.
Definitely.
For sure. I mean, I have somebody that I know who does web comics. She does like her own Pokemon fan comic type thing, and it really like took off for her. And it's like everybody that I know too, and like, well, not everybody, but a good chunk of the indie creators I meet that have comic books say that they have some form of it available as a web comic somewhere,
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
it draws in a big crowd, the web comics scene, as
Yeah.
well as like
Easy.
having the physical too.
And it's weird. I like only read digital comics, so I probably downloaded them. So I'm just like binging them hardcore, you know what I mean? Because I have a whole collection now. But like I really was never like a digital web comic chaser. It just didn't like the tangibility
Yeah.
wasn't there for me all the time, I feel. Even reading a
Mhm.
book like on a Kindle was hard for
Yeah.
me. You know,
That's
Yeah.
how.
I'm just old maybe too. I don't know.
I don't know. I feel like we're kind of the same age, but I feel like I prefer the physical media and having it
Yeah.
as well, as opposed to watching or reading it on a screen. It's harder for me
Yeah.
in a way, even though they tried to make that transition for us in our like high school, like last year. It's like, no, it just didn't work for me. I prefer to have
Yeah.
the nice physical. It's like a piece of art that I can like just pull out and be like, this is cool. I mean, you could kind of do that on a thing, like on a computer, on a tablet or something, but it's it's that feeling of just having it. I don't know.
It's the Stan Lee quote that I use the most out of all the Stan Lee quotes that there could be. But he was saying it's like, comic books are a lot like boobs. Like they're great on the page, but they're even better in your hands. And then it's like, damn it, like why is that the one Stan Lee quote? Like it's the only one I know. But it's a great example. Like I get it. Like you know what I mean? Like it's all right. Like
Some
it's very
powerful
true.
words
I
of
understand.
wisdom.
Yeah.
On that note, I know you said you're on a little bit of time crunch. So I just had two more questions on my end that I wanted to ask
Yeah.
you because it seems like now that you are really becoming a big figure in indie comics. I feel like everybody who's publishing through Comics Wellspring, they know you. It's like you kind of get to know them, and you kind of have a connection with like almost every creator, which is incredible to see. Like you're in charge of the social medias and stuff for Comics Wellspring, and I see the amount of just comic creators that you are collaborating with on a daily basis. It's just like when I think of somebody who's like a predominant figure in indie, I think of you because it's just kind of the feeling I get from you, like how just jumped into it and how things have taken off for you. So I want to ask, do you feel like you're kind of living your dream now, like in these positions with Apollo and Comics Wellspring?
Thanks for making me cry. First off, that's really sweet. Thank you so much. It's weird because I have such like imposter syndrome still, you know what I mean? Like I get so like I don't know. I don't really have an ego in that sense, I feel. You know what I mean? In that
Mm.
in that I'm not I'm and see this is just a fucking example. I'm terrible at taking compliments for one.
It's
And
all
I'm
right. Just take.
terrible at like
I
standing up
mean it.
for like what I do. Like so there's that. But thank you so much. I guess in a yeah, fuck yeah, in a big way. And I guess it's hard for me to look at it some ways because like even dude, until like April, I was working like two jobs. Like I was doing Comics Wellspring and I was doing Apollo. I was
Hmm.
working at Aldi on the weekends because I was doing full time there when we started, Inspired Inc. And when I was doing full time at Aldi, 40 hours a week plus, and then like recording like 8 podcasts a week and just like
Wow.
on the grind. And it was really like I don't know. I feel like I just had so much stuff happen and I felt so shut down
Yeah.
and like the way my life kind of like just changed and crumbled before me, like everything I knew, like and how stuff happened and all that, like it really just like really like fucked me up in a like a crazy way, but like it was because of all that and getting tossed to another side of the country like on a whim almost, uh and restarting um kind of just gave me like I had no other choice but like I had to figure this out, and I just take every opportunity that had like came in front of me and try to make the best out of it. And I was just always just trying to be nice to people, I guess too,
Yeah.
uh just it's weird like when you're broken in a certain way and then you're able to connect and find a community at that time, what that can do for you and how that can like really heal you in a crazy way. And so much has happened in the last 3 years. It's been hard to process a lot of it still.
Mm.
From restarting my life at 30 and like stripping everything I knew about it away from my job to like, a relationship I was in for 7 years. And, it was just me and my dogs. And luckily my best friend was there. But like, I only see him like in the evenings. We had a really cool schedule. By the way, it was the coolest roomie situation ever. Like, and it's because he was out of town 6 to 8 months out of the year. He worked right out of DC. So he woke up at 4:30 in the morning, wouldn't get back until 4:30 at night. I would get off work around 4:35. We'd go gym together, come back, like make a shake and dinner and watch something and smoke out. And then he would go to bed by like 9:30 because he had to like FaceTime his kid and go to bed. And so that was and he was gone on weekends with his dad. So like greatest living situation ever. You know what I mean? Like, and
Oh yeah.
just having that, like, I had a lot of alone time and like reflection time. And I think that just helped me a lot too. There was also a little bit of shrooms a lot involved in a lot of that time too, because like when I started doing the live drawing thing, that I was like, oh, if I'm gonna draw, I should just try to like microdose a little bit, and then I would do that live on YouTube on Apollo with my friend Danny, and like that all came out of a lot of anxiety and depression, and it helped me so much, and it kind of transformed me and it kind of put me on this. But not saying that was the sole purpose, but like that was like during this entire like soul searching time before I was even making comics, like, but that was all before making comics.
Hmm.
But I don't even know what I'm getting to at this point. I guess like it's one of those things where I feel like I've just been working really hard and it's been hard to like see it in some ways, and then it all happens so fast, it's a blur, and you're just I just feel like I'm trying to catch up all the time. um
Yeah.
but it's fucking crazy, dude. It's so cool. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I can't believe that I'm doing this. I'm fortunate. It's been rough, even with CWS, like there's been ups and downs and like some scary moments and like, there's been times where we could have been dropped at any moment and we didn't know what was going to happen. Um, I kept Aldi for a year into that job just to be
Mm.
insured on stuff like that, like,
Yeah.
uh, comics can fall apart, relationships can fall apart at any time. It's always a juggling game, and at any moment, I feel like stuff can just collapse.
Yeah.
But you just kind of just keep going and hoping for the best. And I feel like Apollo's finally getting a state of stability, and so is CWS in a big way. So yeah, you're just I don't know, man. I feel like I've been trying to swim to like breathe for a long time. And I'm
Mhm.
not there yet, but I'm getting there. Like I could kind of start seeing the top of the ocean where I could take a breath. Which is like, I guess when I was starting the show, like I was saying, like I just want to get back to writing again. Like
Mhm.
Yeah.
I started all these projects and these series, and I've been so immersed with Comics Wellspring and Apollo. And when it becomes your passion in your life, it's hard to see like everything in between.
Mm.
Like when am I CW, like when I'm at a convention, you see me and probably tabling with Apollo or CWS or both. I've done both at the same time before. And
Mhm.
so I'm getting footage, talking to creators, trying to get footage for Comics Wellspring. And I'm promoting Apollo because I make comics and I want you guys to all buy my comics too. And it's like trying to juggle that hat, but also like I'm a creator and I'm a writer and I'm learning to like love art and draw. So how do I balance like trying to pursue being an artist in a way, but also still wanting to uphold my like passion of writing? And oh fuck, it turns out like I love playing music. I was just kind of
Mhm.
traumatized because
Mhm.
of my band and that time in
Mm.
my life. I would love to like play music again. And it's like the highest rate of ADHD that I didn't know was undiagnosed until I started dating this girl, and she was like, "You are like out there." And I was like, I guess that makes sense. But I don't know. I don't think I would have done any of this though,
Mhm.
if I hadn't like gotten my ass kicked. You know what I mean? Like sometimes you just have to like fall face down and
I
just
agree.
get up and like do something about it, or you're just gonna kind of whine and complain and do nothing and just let life pass you
Mm.
by. And I never wanted that. Like I'm really grateful for all this because I just grew up on comics and rock and roll because of my dad, and fucking want to make him proud. So
Mhm.
um I kind of wanted to be that standout, and everything I've ever done was just to make my dad like happy and proud. Like my dad's stoner comics, the music stuff, the all of that. That's all because my dad in a big way. So it's just kind of one of those things that circles back to like, oh well, there's purpose behind it, and small stuff. It's not just all selfish in a way. But
Mhm.
I love seeing you
Yeah.
making him proud in that sense.
No.
Yeah.
Well, that is definitely a great answer to that. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Rachel, did you have any last questions before we wrap it up? Because I know I don't want to keep it too long for
Oh
you.
yeah, yeah, for sure. If you have a couple more, by all means.
I was just one more thing. I'm just curious, where did you get the name Apollo? Is it Apollo City Comics? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm like a big
Good
Greek
question.
mythology fan, so I'm just wondering if that's where it comes from or where that comes from.
Oh, it's kind of funny. So I actually there's a little piece of Apollo history in front of me too. I was going through stuff. This is the original logo that I drew for Apollo City.
Oh, wow.
Um, I was literally, that's funny, this like popped up out of this conversation because it was like in a stack of stuff over here I was moving over. But when I was writing for, I was telling you I wrote for websites and
Hmm.
whatnot. I wrote for a website called Comics First that closed down, and there's one called the Daily Fandom that I believe is still
Yeah.
around. Yeah, and I was doing stuff with them, and like, Comics First, I split with them, and then they shut down, and I just wanted to continue pursuing that. So I made the podcast, and so when I was thinking of the podcast, I was like, well, man, I would love to get like, El Paso was always known as the Sun City. We have the Sun
Mhm.
Bowl and stuff like that. It's the desert, just super. All we know is sun. It's brutal.
Wow.
I hate it. And I was like, what if I called it like Sun City Comics? And there was already a comic book shop that was kind of crappy in town that shut down because they were crappy. And they were called Sun City Comics. And I was like, I don't want to be like lame and just do Sun City. And then I was trying to figure out some way to incorporate that in a big way, you know what I mean? And I, was really into Kirby at that time. So I wanted something like city wise, like Genesis, like New Genesis and whatnot. You know what I mean? Like I was
Yeah.
wanted something cosmic in a way. Um, but I landed on Apollo because Apollo, sun god. But
Yeah.
then I'm a really big Coheed and Cambria fan,
Oh,
and
no.
so their albums like Good Apollo and Burning Star 5, 4. I mean, and then the dog's name is Apollo too, and so like me and my dog Spock that was around. Like I was like, oh, does the dog's name? Then yeah, so Apollo City Comics came from a love of like my hometown and Coheed and Cambria essentially, and dogs.
That's awesome. That's a good
That's
answer.
actually the second time that band's been brought up on this podcast. I
Yeah.
think the
Oh,
last
really?
episode was with Adam Smith too.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, I just saw Coheed like a week ago, actually.
Oh,
I see them. I've seen Coheed and Cambria like 10 times. It's crazy.
That's
Like
awesome.
coincidentally too. It's never like somehow every year they're just like in a form. I could see them or catch a show or something epic is around where I'm like, oh man, I should do this. Someone's down to make a 9 hour road trip to Austin and see the show and drive right back 9 hours. And that was
Wow.
that was fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Easy.
That is amazing. Well, Brandon, you have inspired me. I know big time. Hearing you talk about all of your amazing creative endeavors and your passions has left me super hyped and motivated on the inside. Um, I know we're coming to the end of this, so I just wanted to ask you, I guess, one more thing, which is
Yeah.
where can everybody find you on social media and what types of things do you got coming out? Like, promote yourself however you want to. This is our shameless plug segment.
Yeah, for sure. Social media wise, you can check us out at apollo.citycomics.com. Check us out on Instagram. That's where we're most active. But we do have a Blue Sky. I don't know how Facebook works really, but it's
Yeah.
there. It connects to Instagram, so it's cool. We don't use Twitter, so actually, if you check out our Twitter got hacked. So if you look at our Twitter, it's really funny. Because it got hacked. They changed the thing, and it's a bunch of random quotes, but just like with really good looking buff dudes. And it's just the funniest thing in the universe. So like go look at our Twitter, but like I can't get into it, so it's not mine. Um so ridiculous. I'm never gonna fix it, so whatever. But yeah, check us out there and check out Comics Wellspring on social media as well. Comics Wellspring, Apollo City Comics. On Instagram is where we're most active. And check us out on YouTube. Every Thursday night we have bunch of indie guests coming on, drawing and making comics and making conversation and just having a good time for 2 hours. And just we have a bunch of other people joining in, talking in the chat, telling us about what they're making and the materials they're using and asking us which material, all sorts of cool creative stuff. Anything you want to know about comic, just come hang out. And that's what I love about the show. And it's been growing so much. I love the community there. It's every Thursday night, 6:30 to 8:30. You could, watch it when it's done and see what we're all up to. So hyped about that. Check out panels. We're almost funded. We're like less than 400, less than $500 away from being funded. So help me sleep at night, and just get that funded for me, please, so I could just just rest, and breathe a little bit easier, and to continue to do my job. So please, I would really appreciate that. And I guess event wise, I'm doing a really cool event at my library this Saturday. I don't know if this will be up by then, but I'm really hyped about that. It's a cool little, couple hour thing, just like 8 blocks away. And go check out your library if you're a creator. I
Yes.
swear, I just like coordinated with my library this week. I have like 2 events there this year already. Like, it's so rad. Like, they
Yeah.
do so much and they have great comic selections. You can borrow comics for free. Like, go support your library. It's the best thing you could do. And I scan all my 11x17s there too. Like, as a comic creator, it's a perfect tool for you to be doing stuff. Um, but we'll also be doing Positive Force DC, as Apollo City Comics in late June. It's a bunch of punk activists, from like 40 years ago. It's a 40th anniversary, and they're doing all these great events throughout. I believe it's June 19th to 22nd. So we'll be there for the 21st and a few others. Apollo City will also be at the National Cannabis Festival in Washington, D.C. in late July. So hyped about that. Really curious how that's going to turn out. We're doing non-Comic Cons basically this year, which is crazy. Like, everything that's not a con, we were doing. And I'll probably be at Baltimore for CWS as well. But yeah, I think that's it for that I can think of.
Very awesome.
And then there's stuff coming out all the time with Apollo. We'll have, I guess, the Euro trip coming in. We're bringing our international creators in, and then we're announcing 2 other books with Artie Murphy and Paul Dieter as well, and then some more stuff by everybody, from me to all the people.
That's so cool.
Wow. Well, let's get you a clap for those. It has been an absolute pleasure, Brandon, to have you on the show.
Same.
Before we end it, though, Rachel, did you have anything that you wanted to share?
I'm on. I am. I am working on the second draft of the novel right now, so like it's coming together. I have just editing to go through, and then we will publish. I will announce a publish date within the next month, I think. So stay tuned for that, and you can check out the first chapter of my novel on elegantbomb.com.
Ooh, cool.
I got to use that a little bit more, but I'm super excited. I know it's been a long time coming, so
Congrats on that. That's super rad.
Thank
oh yeah,
you.
we're gonna have a party when that releases. We're gonna do a whole episode dedicated to the book for Rachel when it comes
Yeah,
out
I'm gonna like eat a whole cake or something. I mean, it's like,
on
Well deserved.
live podcast episode.
it's gonna be awesome.
Let's do it. We should do like a live in-person episode for that. That would be really cool if we could get
That,
everybody
they're so
together.
much fun. And they're so much easier too, because there's no editing. You just put
I
it up.
know, right?
I think Apollo's going to come back as a podcast in some form, for
Yeah.
sure soon. We have some ideas. We're working on just bandwidth got crazy. We tried to bring it back last year. We got like 3 or 4 episodes in, and then one episode never even came out, and it just sat there. And it was a holiday episode, so we couldn't just release it. And we're doing the podcast. We're doing a live show. I think my girlfriend and I are doing a. We're gonna do a show called Slit Your Wrist Sundays, and where we just like watch like music videos and watch like it came from getting ready for Warped Tour this year, and so we're just gonna watch all these bands and get ready, and just it's a bunch of emo music, and
That's
so she
fun.
made fun of me.
That's awesome.
We all love emo. I mean, I'm kind of developing my emo swoop here.
Literally, I had like one of the most recent songs by Thursday playing, and I was like, I'm so hyped, the new song just came out, and then she was like, this song literally makes me want to kill myself. Like it's so depressing. Like, and I
We
was like,
don't
I
promote
understand.
that on this show,
Yes.
but good
She's like,
songs
between
make you
this,
feel.
she's like, between this and Anthony Green, I'm just over it. Like, I just can't. Like,
Oh man.
uh,
Well, to close us out, then, my name is Tanner. You can find me on social media. The number 2 Pencil Man issue 2 is coming out in a couple weeks. Hopefully, we are finishing up the last of the edits for that, and then we were going to try to get it out for that Geekdom Con. Unfortunately, it kind of didn't play out that way. So I'm thinking mid June probably will be when I probably have it in hand, and then we'll probably do some sort of small event to launch that, maybe at a local comic book store. I'll definitely keep everybody in the loop with that. I'll be at Thy Geekdom Con this weekend. I will be actually hosting a panel and vendoring. So I am doing my first Pencil Pep Talk live in front of however many people
Yeah.
show up. So I'm going to motivate people to hopefully pursue their creative dreams. So that'll be fun. I'll have interactive stuff. I'll bring like paper and pencils for people to write things down during the whole thing. And I'll have resources for people at the end where they can get a good helpful list of tools and resources that they can use to make their creative dreams come true. So I'm excited for that. Catch me there. I will have all my comic books available and a bunch of other merch that I always have. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it for me in this immediate stuff to have, like promotion stuff. I know we started doing the podcast twice a week now to accommodate schedules because Frey's work schedule has been staggered. So there'll be an episode earlier in the week where it'll be me and Frey and Katie, and then there'll be the regular scheduled Friday episode, which is what this one is, where it'll be me, Rachel, and Katie until we can get everybody back together, and then we'll maybe go back to one. We'll see how it goes. It's helpful for us because we've actually had an influx of indie creators start reaching out to us for this podcast. So
I've
when I
sent a
said we
lot
were
your
growing,
way. Like,
it is
crazy.
taken off, and we've got like a whole bunch of amazing creators lined up. We have a couple more musicians coming on soon. We have a jewelry maker coming on soon.
Ooh,
More comic creators, like a lot of comic creators, because I commented on a Facebook post when somebody was looking for a podcast, and then my inbox got flooded in one day, and I'm like, all right, I got to figure out how to schedule all these people. So 2 episodes, at least for the time being, and then we'll see how it goes. And when we bring everybody back together, we'll have a core 4 episode where we can catch up on everybody, because we'll all have new projects out by then, probably. So yeah, it's been crazy. And that brings me to the last point of this show. If you are enjoying our show and you want to, support us, you can always drop a like, comment, interact with us, and subscribe to the channel to help us grow, so that way we can get more indie creators out into the spotlight. If you are an indie creator of any kind and you want to be on this podcast, like I said, any kind of indie creator, even the ones that you might not even consider yourselves to be creators. We've had small businesses on the show. We've had clowns, doctors of psychology. We've had comic book writers. We've had poets. Pretty much the list goes on and on. If you create anything, if you have a business or something that you have created or anything like that, and you want to be on the show, reach out to us, DM us on our social medias. We are known as the Dreamscape Empyrean, so you can find us on all socials as that. Our podcast is called Indie Synergy Exchange. You can search that up on YouTube, and that'll pop up. And on audio platforms, we're a little behind on those, but once we get a logo and everything, we'll be on all major audio platforms. So we'll be available in like video format and audio format. So that's exciting. Who knows what else will come out of this group? We are just starting out. We started with the podcast, but we do have dreams to eventually grow into many things. We want to be a community, a hub where indie creators can connect, help each other find resources, maybe even like enlist each other's help to make projects and dreams come true, because we realize that being indie can be intimidating. So we're here to band everybody together, and we're going to take back the mainstream and make it indie stream. And yeah, that's our mission. So all that to say, if you're enjoying our content, consider supporting us and just following along for the journey. And yeah, every ounce of support helps us to build this dream. And on that note, I'm done with my ending things. So thank you guys for tuning into Indie Synergy Exchange. And like I said, check out our other content, and we'll be back again with another episode soon. Thank you again, Brandon, for coming on the show. It has been fantastic talking with you. Like, I am super hyped, and I'm sure everybody out there is probably feeling the same. So I want you to sign us off, Brandon. Can you give everybody one piece of advice for pursuing their creative dreams?
Never take anything as a failure. It's just you're just learning. Like you're literally just learning. Like you're just know you're gonna suck for a little bit, and that's it. That's the best advice. Like you just know that, and
That's
it's gonna be great.
fantastic. Fantastic advice. And on that note, we will see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.